I've been doing this. I've been an independent provider since 1990, since I was allowed to. My sister was the first person on the IO waiver in Pickaway County. So I've been doing this long enough to where documentation form handwritten. So, yeah. I mean, I can attest that we are so much better off now than we were before. I mean, if people think technology or this side of it is tricky now, believe me, it was so much more tedious before. So I've seen the improvement. But I think it's important. I think, I've always kind of felt this undercurrent of like an us and them, agency versus independent. And to your point, I think it's important to realize, and I've talked with agency folks recently, and we're all after the same cause and we're all in the same boat. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important there, like you said, it's teamwork. We both have a role to play in this. And like I said, independent's not for everybody.
Hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul, and we are headed out on the road for the Friends for Life podcast world tour. So let's hop in the car and get going. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Today we have Barbara Corley of Corley Caregiver Consulting, LLC. Barbara, how are you doing this morning?
I'm well. Thank you, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we heard about you while we were down in Pickaway County. Everybody had very good things to say about you. So, of course, we wanted to have you on the podcast. We love people that just do good work. So our first question always is, how did you get started in this field of caregiving and then further down the road into the consulting side of things?
Well, I was actually kind of born into this, as weird as this sounds. So when I was 4 years old, I have a sister who's 3 years and 9 months younger than me. Mm-hmm. When I was 4, she was born totally healthy. But when I was 4, she contracted bacterial meningitis, which basically left her spastic, quadriplegic, cortical vision impairment, non-ambulatory, 24-hour care. Basically, we're blessed in the fact that she does not require skilled nursing of any sort in that regard, but she does require full-time care, supervision, that type of thing. So, I started as a caregiver basically my entire life, like I said, at 4. In retrospect, I can see it's kind of a common theme throughout my life. I had a grandmother who was a paid caregiver in like a nursing home setting and stuff. So it seems to be a natural tendency I'm noticing throughout my family, but.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, so you have experience in caregiving, obviously. What led you down the path to say, hey, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to consult people in caregiving because, caregiving is kind of like this hidden field. It's not something that people really talk about very often. It's not very visible. Like you're not working a counter at McDonald's or at the store. You're kind of working in people's homes. So you're kind of in this hidden field. So what made you want to branch out and start your own consulting business? Well,
I had worked actually for a family-owned company for many years. In 2019, they sold that company and went corporate. I learned pretty quickly that I'm not a corporate person. So I came quite disillusioned and I'm like, I just knew I had to pivot some direction, but I was unsettled with the whole thing. And, as weird as it sounds, I call it a God whisper. I was actually working, I would work full time through the week and 3 nights a week I would go to help my parents with my sister. She lives full time with them. And so I'm the only sibling. So I'm trying to kind of stay in the loop, So I was working with her one evening and I just had this thing pop into my head, this phrase of caregiver coach. And I'm like, I don't even know if that's a thing, and I couldn't shake it. And so I just Googled it and I got in connection with a lady named Denise Brown who runs basically Carrier's Training Academy. And she's been training and coaching caregivers since like 1990. And so I had a discussion with her and it kind of lingered. And then COVID hits in March of 2020 and I get furloughed. And I thought, okay, let's start thinking about a plan B. And furlough was extended the second time. And I thought, this doesn't look good. So at that point, I kind of formulated a plan B. I'm an independent, I'm a DSP, I'm an independent provider through the IO waiver to help with my sister. And so I decided not to go back to my corporate position And I thought that's the core of who I am, really, as a caregiver. I've lived it my entire life. And if I can support somebody else through that journey, I wanted to. So I kind of split the difference, and I spent more time helping my sister and my parents. And then I branched out and started the consulting on the side, and now work with the Pickaway County Board of Developmental Disabilities, mentoring and supporting both new and existing DSPs that are coming into the field as independent providers in the state of Ohio.
Well, I love the fact that especially independent providers are being targeted. Like, I think that is very important because our independent providers are a lot of times they're left out of the equation, I think. But
Absolutely.
But they're so needed.
So, I agree with you.
How does that process typically go?
Okay, so usually I'm like the point of contact. So if somebody is interested in doing this, they might contact the county board to start with. They then lateral them to me, and they're like, I want to do this. Where do I start? And so I basically have a checklist that goes down through all the paperwork.
Yeah.
And such, do step 1, step 2, step 3, all that kind of stuff. And then once that's all and the certification and all the state requirements are met, then I sit down with everybody one-on-one, and it can be an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we go through, we have a binder that we have put together, and I sit there and we ask questions, and then just basically go through what it's supposed to look like. And I tell them all, they all meet me with these big eyes, and I said, just take a deep breath. It's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. But trust me, in 6 months, this is going to be old hat to you, and you'll be fine. But just breathe through it in the beginning, But you're right, Tony, and that was what the county saw the need for, is specifically for independents. So in agencies, they have this entire business unit to support them.
Right.
Independents, they would get them to a point of, here's your certification, congratulations, good luck to you. And there's nobody out there. I mean, the closest thing to support I have found is a Facebook page for independent providers in Ohio that has like 3,500 people on it, a minimum, something around in there.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get answers.
Well, and I'll give a quick shout out to the Lucas County Board of DD. They're large enough to have liaisons for their independent providers, and that can help. But like you're saying, there's still tens of thousands of independent providers throughout the state who don't get that help.
Absolutely.
I love playing devil's advocate sometimes. So
okay,
if I'm an independent provider, I'm walking in, I'm saying, hey, Barbara, hey, I just want more money. Yeah, I can't get it working at these other places. I'm about to get $20, $21, $22 an hour working with a client, but I can't do the weekends. I can only do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That sounds about good. And maybe about 3 hours each one of those days. So just push me through. How can we do that?
I mean, honestly, I will start with, that all depends on what the client load is in our county. I would start with contacting my group of SSAs here in the county. And I would say, this is my provider. This is what the time they have available. Do we have what resources are there? What clients? I would also suggest, if my county doesn't have it, other counties might. I have a lot of people who are interested, from nearby counties who want to cross over the line, the county line, and come and help wherever there's a need.
Right.
I get that there's a magic, I want to work first shift. A lot of people do. The need a lot of times is in those off shifts. And there has to be a little compromise. And I get that we're independents. And that we want to be able to have that freedom to shape our schedule. But there are still folks that need help on weekends, and there are still folks that need help on in evenings, especially if they're in a day program. And I strongly encourage people to consider it. In many cases, it's not just the client you're helping; you're also helping the family.
Yeah,
and that's huge. That's huge. And to your point, Paul, in the beginning, DSPs we're an invisible workforce. And family caregivers are the other side of that coin. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of family caregivers who are stepping up to be Ohio Shared Living because of the shortage. And I'm forever thankful that that Ohio has made that an opportunity for families, because there's nothing worse than seeing somebody caught between holding down a full-time job and trying to, or having to give that up and care for a family member. There's no win in many of those cases, So you're asking somebody to sacrifice financial security for the care of their family member. How do you make that call? That's torturous, So Ohio Shared Living has just been a fantastic opportunity to support family caregivers.
Yes, amen. Claps to that. And really fast, I had fumbled in the beginning of what I was saying, because I also have an aunt named Barbara, and we call her Babs. Oh. So I almost called you Babs.
That's okay. That's okay. I have a friend who does. I'm okay with that.
Okay. So, but much love, much love.
I was, thinking while you were talking, with independent providers versus DSPs, what do you think would be, what do you think there aren't more people going the route of independent provider? Do you think it's because it's kind of like a self-starting, you have to take your own classes and pay for your own background checks and all this stuff? I know this because my wife just went through this process. And, why would you maybe... What I'm asking is, why would you say if you're a DSP, maybe you don't necessarily you like the work, but maybe you don't like working for X company that you're at? Why would you push someone to maybe say, hey, being an independent provider could give you a little bit more flexibility to kind of be on your own terms?
I mean, I guess I had this conversation with someone recently who was interested in getting into the field. And I can speak from the side of the independent. And I also know people who work agency, and I'll be the first to tell you, independent is not for everybody. It's important. Yes, more money is important, but there's a lot of as an independent, you wear two hats. You're a caregiver and you're a small business owner. So there's a lot of the details and the minutia in the small business that I've had people tell me, working with the client's the easy part. It's the paperwork that's the work. Yeah. So if you're not a techie person, you might likely need the support of an agency who's going to help you through that. And believe me, I understand everybody wants a bigger paycheck for what they do. And I do feel like we're going in the right direction in terms of increased wages for DSPs. I mean, because they're holding people's health and well-being and safety in their hands. And they're making basically, in some cases, what you can make at McDonald's. And I don't quite think that's fair. And that gets off on a tangent and hits a nerve with me. I mean, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, that's right.
I know. But I mean, I think we're very lucky that Ohio sees the value. But I will, like I said, I am here to support someone who wants to become an independent. I support that 100%. But I also am very cautious with them that I'm not saying they can't do it, but there's more to it than it's not just, I'm going to, it's easy, piece of cake. There's a lot of little things you got to think about. It's a little more complex. So I guess it all depends on how deep you want to get into the weeds as a small business owner.
Yeah. You know what? I think that there's this mindset where people get confused when becoming an independent provider, not realizing that you are becoming your own company. You are becoming your own entity. And the education behind that is, I don't know, it's not really out there. It's never been a thing per se, because no one ever really expected it to get to where it is right now, I think. I've always seen independent providerships kind of as that like second job of a business. But now you can actually make it, I think it helps agencies a whole lot more than what we give it credit for. just if you have someone who can take care of your weekends for you, and you no longer have to worry about weekend scheduling from a company or independent provider standpoint, that changes the game. It gives you a nice, comfortable, a livelihood, or that work-life balance that everyone is searching for, I guess is the best way I could put it. But, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Babs. And look, I did it again. You're going to be Babs for the rest of this show. I'm just going to have to. That's
okay. I'm totally okay with it. I am. I'm totally okay with it. No, I think it's important, to your point, though, Tony. I think it's important that, I've been doing this. I've been an independent provider since 1990, since I was allowed to. My sister was the first person on the IO waiver in Pickaway County. So I've been doing this long enough to where documentation form handwritten. So, yeah. I can attest that we are so much better off now than we were before. If people think technology or this side of it is tricky now, believe me, it was so much more tedious before. So I've seen the improvement. But I think it's important. I think, I've always kind of felt this undercurrent of like an us and them, agency versus independent. And to your point, I think it's important to realize, and I've talked with agency folks recently, and we're all after the same cause, and we're all in the same boat. And I think it's important there, like you said, it's teamwork. We both have a role to play in this. And like I said, independence not for everybody.
Yeah. The end definitely justifies the means in my eyes. But one thing we've been reaching out a lot about lately are families. You and your sister, you said 3 years and 9 months apart?
Yep.
All right. How was that dynamic growing up? We were just speaking with someone in Pickaway County, someone that I'm probably sure you're familiar with. I want to save it for our listeners so they can go back and listen. But like, how was the dynamic growing up? Were you vindictive? Did you feel as if maybe attention was taken away from you, or did you see the circumstances and understand, like, hey, I need to be here for my family, for my parents, and help? Like, how was that growing up?
I'll be honest. I was tickled to death to be a big sister. My mom has photographic proof. She'll tell me that, and there's pictures of me. I was so proud to be a big sister. And I'll be honest, I think about this a lot, and because the whole sibling, the whole spotlight's is really being shine on siblings more and more over the past few years. And I hear horror stories, and I'm like, I don't know. I've never felt vindictive. I've never felt left out. My parents tried very hard to make my childhood as normal as possible, given the circumstances. If anything, I think it's the whole experience has shaped who I am. I never resented her. From my perspective, I looked at her and I look at her, I'm like, how could I resent that? It's not like she's faking this or doing this for attention or,
right.
There's a core organic reason why things are the way they are. And if anything, she shaped me in a level of compassion. She shaped me to always support and look out for the underdog. And, I had someone ask, or I heard the question, who are you at your core? And I thought, who am I? Core, that comment really struck me one day, and I thought, I'm my sister's sister. That's who I am at my core. And, I will fight tooth and nail. And if I have to roll up my sleeves and get ugly with somebody over something that needs to happen for her, I will do it in a heartbeat. It hits something very deep and very central to who I am at my core. I've always known that, like I said, I don't have any other siblings. So when my parents are gone, she comes to me. I've always known that. That's never been a question for me. Do I know what that's going to look like? No. I'll cross that bridge when I get there, and I, set things in motion as best I can. But I've always really kept it, and even to this day, I keep it. It's she has a very childlike innocence to her. I can't sit down and talk finances, obviously, with her, and heavy issues as an adult. But we have a pretty special relationship, and we can communicate with each other, and I can bring things out of her that my mom and dad can't, and likewise. And yeah, I mean, it's still a sibling relationship. It's just different. But it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Do I wish she had gone through this? No, I don't. I don't wish it on anybody. But we're pretty blessed in our circumstance with her and the things that she's able to experience and enjoy in life. And yeah, even with the disabilities and the struggles and everything that our family has gone through the time, I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I wouldn't trade her for anything.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, we've talked to people in the past which I know what Tony's talking about because I was there during this conversation. But it's like, I think it's all just personality too, because every person's different. Everybody's going to take things differently. But I sometimes, if a sibling has a sibling with a disability or something, one instance that we talked about in the past is they felt like the sibling with the disability is getting all the attention, and then someone's getting, the other sibling is feeling left out because they're always the center of attention when they go somewhere. And that probably can be hard for people. I mean, especially if you're a young kid, and that's any kid. Yeah. My brother and I used to fight for attention all the time, even when they were 4 or 5 years apart. It's just like, it's just kids being kids. And some people, that doesn't matter. Some siblings are like, we've never fought in our life. And I'm like, we tried to kill each other. So it's just how it's just family.
Every day was murder.
But I want to talk a little more on the independent provider side of things, because we really don't talk about it on this podcast very much. So it's very DSP oriented.
Honestly, I don't even think we've had an independent provider on.
I don't think so.
Dude, I think we need to do better.
Well, I think it goes to show of how it's not really a topic that we think of, because every person that's been on the show is all we talk about is, residential care, county boards, DSP. That's all we talk about. And we just forget about this whole side of independent provider. And like you guys both brought up, it's essentially running your own business, and that's hard. Tony runs a business. I've run my own photography business.
Allegedly.
Yeah. and it's very, you have to be a self-starter to do a lot of things. And then I think there's this entrepreneurial side of things that people kind of forget about. And especially with an independent provider, you're accountable for all sides of things. You're accountable for your own taxes. Yeah. You're accountable for all of this. But on the flip side, you're also making more money. And I think that's something that people don't take into account. Yes, absolutely saying DSP should make a ton more money. There's no argument there. But the thing is like, from my perspective, seeing it literally in my household and working here with Tony, the amount of stress that is added as an independent provider doing paperwork and essentially doing your own finance, all this stuff, I do believe that it is offset by the little bit of freedom you have. And correct me if you think I'm going off the rails with this, but I've just seen in my own house, my wife was a DSP. She did work for the county board for a while, and then now she's an independent provider, and she's 100 times happier. And my wife is not an entrepreneurial spirited person, okay? We'll just say that. But she really enjoys it a lot more, and it's giving her own freedom to do things that, whereas if you're a DSP, you go to work and you say, you're working here, go do this, do that. Whereas maybe there's a job and she's like, I don't think this is good for me. I can say no to this. So what I'm saying is, do you think the trade-off is worth it for the little bit of extra struggle, or is that like a non-issue between like just work wherever you want to work, is what I'm saying, essentially?
I mean, obviously I haven't worked in an agency setting. I can only equate it to working, we'll say, sort of like a typical 9 to 5. I think being an independent does give you a little bit more flexibility. I think it all depends on, though, the attitude that you're going into it with. Are you going into it for the work schedule and fitting clients into it? Or are you going out there to just help clients? Like, schedule is a moot point for me. I just want to try and reach the people that need my help the most. And, I've talked with a couple providers who, if they're able to, they'll work 80 hours a week. They don't care. They know the need is there. They want weekends, overnights, whatever, because those are the people they're having the hardest time finding, someone to help them and to fill that need. In a sense, there is, how would I say, it seems glamorous to be self-employed, and it's not. Not always. It is nice in that sense that you have a little bit more flexibility. But you still have other parameters you have to fill in. So while you're, like a 9-to-5 job, they're going to tell me I got to be there 9 to 5, do this. Well, I may not have that schedule parameter as an independent, but I still have other parameters and other things I have to answer to. So I don't know that it's the be all end all for everybody. Like you said, you have to kind of have an entrepreneurial spirit. You have to be a self-starter. And I think it's made a lot easier if you can tag up with a mentor. The hardest part of this, man, when I started was you had to work it out and figure it out yourself. And that's the hardest part. If you've got somebody, that's why I love what I do with Pickaway County, is if somebody comes to me and I'm like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to set you up to be successful right out of the gate, because it's what I wish I would have had 30 years ago. Yeah. And so it's a help somebody. And I'm happy to. And I hate to throw my doors open and say that to everybody, because I got a feeling I would, it would be like a fire hose. But if I can help somebody, even in the smallest way, we're all working for the greater good here. And there's such a need. And if it's, if mentorship is that little piece is all somebody's missing, it's a simple fix to me,
Yeah. And well, I think there's this like viral meme thing going around on like TikTok and Instagram. And it's like, I didn't want to work a 9 to 5. So I started my own business, and now I work every single day. And it's a funny meme. But like, when I think about that, it's the difference between like, I work for Tony. I also run my own photography stuff. So like, all of my work revolves around what I love to do. I love cameras. Yes. I love photography. And so like an example of that would be this last weekend, I went and worked a big event, took photography. I was there for like 8 hours straight, went home, worked all Sunday, editing photos for this 10 hours. And people are like, all you do is work all the time. I was like, yeah, but I love doing this. Like, it's not. Exactly. I don't like editing photos and taking photos for me is like fun. I do it for free for myself because I love to do it. Then like, it's just like the same principle. If you love working with people and you love helping people, it's not a job. It's just what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like that's your story on your website is basically saying that like I'm doing this regardless of I'm getting paid or not. And if you can make money doing that, I think that is a good fit. If that's your mindset going into it, that's a good fit for you as an individual to become an independent provider. Like if that's the way you think, if you come in every day as a DSP and say, I just love this, I wish I got paid more. It's like, boy, do I have a solution for you. And, I think that's the mindset it kind of takes. And if you come into every situation and say, weekends are off the table, nights are off the table, maybe you don't love that as much as you say you do. Like, and you can't, and we can't all work 24/7. That's a huge myth. Like it's just like a thing that we talk about in American society. Like, I grind 24/7. Like, no, that's not possible. Yeah, but we need downtime. It's a thing. But yeah, anyway, the point I'm getting at to that is like, I think mindset is very important because my week does not revolve around Monday through Sunday. Like I just do things on days that I have to do them. And I don't think like it's the weekend. I'm like, if there's a thing I want to do and I'm going to get paid for it, I do it. I don't worry about it.
Hold on, man. I am sitting here. I am like in super smile mode, and I'm very emotional this morning too.
He was crying earlier.
Yeah, I was crying earlier. I saw an individual that we used to service. She passed, and it was one of her last video clips that she did with us. And so, oh man, see, it's bringing it back up. But I love Tangent Paul. When Paul goes off on tangents like this, it gets me so hype because like him and I, we feed off of each other. Like the reason for this podcast exists how it does is because our goals of spreading information and wonderful content and just humanity, we feed off of each other. So when he gets to getting all go like this, I'm like, yeah, it's time to like. Let's go change some laws.
Well, I was getting to a point with this. Usually my questions I've noticed on the podcast are like me talking for 8 minutes and then I'm like, oh yeah, this was going to a question. So I apologize for that. But one of the avenues, aside from all that, if you really love it, but one thing I learned about recently is, weirdly enough, one of my best friends works at a county board and he's kind of like on the back end. He does like paper pushing stuff. But he was like, did you know that you can get paid pretty good money to drive people to work that have disabilities? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was talking about there's a program, you guys probably both know more about it than me. But it essentially went down to you have so much that you can charge per day to drive somebody back and forth to work. You get paid the same whether it's 2 miles or 50 miles.
Yep, the per trip rule.
Yeah. So that was a whole new facet. And I've said this on multiple episodes. The disabilities field is not a place where a lot of people think, dang, I could make some money working here, because all we talk about, and we're guilty of pushing this as well, is how much money you don't make as a DSP. Yeah. But if you specialize, I think that's where you're going. If you, like you've specialized, you've have the experience, you have the knowledge. We've met people who make their entire careers off of videography in the DSP world. I do that. That's what my career. Like, there is so much room for growth if you're willing to think outside the box a little bit and do things different. I think there's so much money to go around in this field. It's wild, but everybody has this mindset, back to our mindset talk of, oh, woe is me, I'm a DSP, I'm never going to make any more money. But like, money doesn't just happen. Like, you have to figure out ways to make it. It's not an easy thing. I've been doing this crap for 10 years since I was like in my early 20s. So it's just like, it takes a while, but I think there's a lot of, not to say that you should come to this field just hoping to make a ton of money. I'm just saying it never occurred to me that in the field of disability specifically, you could have like a career where you're like not making minimum wage. Do you think that's true? That was my whole question on this big rant. Do you think that's a valid point, or am I just making stuff
20 years later?
No, I think that's a valid point. I think a lot of people have no idea what options are even available within the DoDD world unless they are first of all, unless they are immediately touched by it.
Yes.
I can't honestly say I would know this if I hadn't been touched by it throughout my entire life. We are an invisible workforce. So yes. I think now that there are podcasts like yours, there are articles, there are, all this exposure to it is going to shed light on it. And there's an opportunity to expand and make a difference, because like I said, it's kind of been, it's been there, but like a lot of people don't know about it. Or the nuances of it. So I think there's tremendous potential, possibly from the money-making side and as well as just from, serving the greater good and making a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying earlier, to mindset, like I've had more than one person tell me the job is not work. It's the paperwork. So
he says that all the time.
What you're doing, yeah. If you enjoy what you're doing, it makes all the other minutia that you don't like doing easier.
Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely. So, we got a lot of things that we do on this show, but one of my favorite things is a little game show we like to play with our guests called
Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
it is a game show on this show in which I ask you 3 questions. These questions are put in a would you rather scenario. The quicker you can answer them, the better it is for, I don't know, us.
Yeah.
But the longer it takes, it still makes more content because we can talk about you later.
You don't want the slowest award. We already have one person.
We already have one the person who was the
Deal.
slowest award. I don't even think we finished it. All right. They can get weird, so good luck.
Tony writes these questions, not me. I'm just letting you know.
Would you rather kick a ugly cat or hug a cute bear?
I'd rather hug a cute bear.
Who wants to harm animals? I feel you.
I know,
there.
right?
All right. Would you rather take $1 from a homeless man or $1 from a church collection plate? Yeah,
Church collection plate.
Yeah.
Easy.
You can always.
I mean, neither one of those isn't easy. They're both wrong, man. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Last one. And this is where it gets weird, Babs. Would you rather have 2 belly buttons or 4 nipples?
Oh, geez.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus. 2 belly buttons.
Yeah.
Again, I did not write these questions.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're not our slowest guest.
You're not. And you did well.
Oh, my goodness.
You did very
wonderful.
You win the game. Well, the prize is...
Oh, how wonderful.
Bragging rights. I don't know. First off, we really want to thank you for coming on and talking with us. I mean... I feel like we could go for another hour and a half if we wanted to, but
definitely,
we're really glad that what you're doing and bringing awareness to the independent providers things and consulting, helping people out, because this is what the field is based around, is helping people, and it's a wonderful thing. So before we wrap up, if you could let people know where they can learn more about you, if people are interested in taking part in your consulting, where they can learn more, social media, website, all of the above.
Absolutely. The easiest way, I guess, would probably be my website, which has all my contact information with email and cell phone, all that kind of thing. It's Corley, caregiverconsulting.com. I'm basically, like I said, I focus in on the county board with DSPs, but I'm also a huge advocate for supporting family caregivers that are out there as well. So, that's probably the easiest place. That's quick and dirty here. Everybody can just write it down really fast and then find everything they need from there.
Awesome. And I will put links to that in the YouTube and the show notes on everything, so they can just click the link below if they want to find you. And again, we want to thank you so much for coming on. This is an awesome conversation, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you so much, guys, for the opportunity. This was wonderful.